In the previous part we saw that Lee Young met his friend that he didn't recognize since he leveled up so much. He asked the instructor how many people completed the training like he did. It was around 3,800 people. He got a new sword as a gift. He was asked to join a quest which you could easily clear, but he declined the quest. And now back to today's chapter, where he explains why he doesn't want to take the quest. He tells that he didn't choose a class yet. He still has the option to be a moonlight sculptor. The instructor tells him that after he chose a class that he should definitely come back, because he has many jobs for him. But he still isn't sure whether he should take the class to be a moonlight sculptor. The instructor wants to give him some advice in which class to choose, but the advice isn't shown. He then heads out of the basic training facility. He sees a heavy guarded house where an important person lives. Someone tells him that Sage Rodrius lives in that castle. He is surprised since he recognized that name. He came across that name when he studied the guidebook of the game. Sage Rodrius is a wise man who knows almost everything about this world. He's a very strict man, so Lee Young carefully has to choose his words, since he throws everyone out of his castle who speaks with words he doesn't like to hear. The instructor states that the sage will find a perfect class for him, but he tells Lee Young that the sage is quite weird, so he doesn't know what will happen. He states that he won't be able to reach him with ordinary methods. He gives him a tissue. He tells him that if he shows this to the sage that he will listen to him. It was Queen Yvain's personal handkerchief. Lee Young thinks that this might be a chain quest since Queen Yvain is again involved. He walks towards the entrance, but is immediately stopped by the guards. They ask him what he wants. He tells them that he wants to speak with Sage Rodrius. He shows them the handkerchief and tells them that he needs to deliver it personally to Sage Rodrius. He tells them that he had to do it for the training instructor, but they still won't let him in. They tell him that it's not their problem and that they're just doing what they're asked to do, even if it's for the training instructor. Lee Young now realizes what a kind of influence fame has. But the guards also got training from the training instructor, but they still can't let him in. Lee Young now has to come up with another solution. He states that he don't want to enter the castle anymore. He will have a different approach to meet the sage. He will wait outside of the castle for as long as it takes for the sage to come out of it. The guards have never seen something like this, but they can do nothing since it's a public street. The guard then tells him that the sage never comes out of his house, so it's pointless to wait outside. But Lee Young tells them that it's fine with him. He will wait as long as it has to take to speak to the sage. It reminded him of the time that he had to wait very long for his grandmother until she was done with her job. It never troubled him to wait for a long time, and this time also doesn't trouble him since he's used to it. A day passes by and Lee Young is still waiting. He realizes that he's not coming out of the castle. He figures that the sage will be sleeping at night, so he will go home for now and come back very early in the morning. He decides to use his time effectively, so he finds a place to spend his time. The monsters give him 30% more experience in this guide, and there are a lot of noobs at this time. However, the monsters will be 1.5 times stronger than normal. Before he can start fighting, he gets caught by a group of people. He looks who's behind him, and he sees a crew that mostly consists of girls. They ask him to hunt with them. They need someone extra to play with them. He analyzes their crew and sees that they have no one for defense. He thinks that he has to tank for them. A crew consists of 4 roles. One person has to heal the others, while the ranged attacker has to attack from the distance. The melee attacker has to attack, while the tank defends. Since he has no experience, he decides to team up with them. He agrees to join, and they send him a party and fight. The first player introduces herself as Sakura, and she's level 7. The second player is Irene, and she's also level 7. The third player is Romuna, and she's level 6. They think that his level is really high since he's hunting alone at night, but he tells them that he's only level 3. They are shocked that he is so weak, and that he still didn't choose a class. They are all disappointed and think that they made a mistake by inviting him. He tells them that he will leave if they don't want him in the party, but they apologize and think that they hurt his feelings, and they now all feel sorry for him. They decide that he should stand back while they do the hunting. They all agree on this and ask him back into the party since he walked away. He really wanted to join the parties, so he was purposely guilt-tripping them, and his plan worked. He thinks that they are kind, but states that they won't get stronger with kindness, and he takes his mission to get stronger very seriously. A really powerful wolf appears, and Lee Young wants to take him down all by himself, but they doubt that he could do it alone. Since that monster is one of the strongest in the field, they advise him to run away as quickly as possible, but she tells her crew member to take that advice back. She tells that they should use Lee Young as a bait, since everyone will be wiped out if he doesn't hold the monster back. Lee Young realizes that they won't be any help in this fight. He gets scratched by the wolf, and it damages him a lot. He took 10% down of his HP, but the whole crew is doing their best to help Lee Young. The ranger shoots fireballs to deal damage from a distance, but it doesn't work. But she tries again and again to help Lee Young. The wolf rushes towards him as he tries to figure out how to defeat it. He states that this isn't easy, just like he thought. One of the crew members unexpectedly hits the wolf quite hard in the face, but he tells his crew members to run away while he's fighting the wolf, but they won't listen and try to fight along his side. He tells them that they are stupid for risking their life for a person they just met, but he likes that they are trustworthy. He is determined to kill the wolf. He's thinking back of the time that he was training in the real world. Meanwhile, in the dojo he used to train, his teacher is showing a sword cutting technique. With that technique, a face could be cut in pieces in an instant. His former teacher is showcasing this technique to his students. The students are praising him, but he wants them to do the exact same thing, and he will punish them if they aren't able to. The students think that this is not possible. He thinks that lately no one has the guts to do anything at all. The teacher is thinking back about his past students. He gets reminded of the hardworking Lee Young. The students now are nowhere near close to him. While Lee Young is in the middle of the battle, he feels that someone is thinking about him. His teacher wonders why he hasn't come to the dojo lately. Back to the fight of Lee Young, where he realizes that he can't even hesitate for a moment. He tells the crew to run away if he dies. He then attacks without fear. While he states that games are very different from reality, the avatar is capable of mimicking what he is thinking, but they will also be stronger if he is strong in real life. He learned martial arts and this comes in handy, since he's able to apply it in VR MMO. The player will be moving in the game as he would do in real life, so he is allowed to use martial arts inside of the game. There won't be any destructive power. The techniques of martial arts can be transferred to the game. However, the destructive power is decided by the avatar. But these are not the only variables he relies on. He tried to get a critical hit, which worked. When he studied the game, he realized that there is only a small chance to get a critical hit. But he wanted to figure out a way to trigger this every time he fights. However, there's no way to fully control this, unless you try 10,000 times. The probability that a critical hit won't appear after you try 10,000 times is close to 0, so he found out a way to kick 10,000 times at once. This made the chance that he would land a critical hit close to 100%. The critical hit appeared many times. This is why he could easily defeat the wolf, even if he was too weak. He already expected the outcome, but he didn't test this method yet. It was a huge success for him. He barely had any HP left, but he was able to hit the weak points of the wolf, which resulted in a victory. He gained a lot of experience and leveled up. He obtained a new sword skill and also a sculpting blade. He is able to fight and sculpt with that blade. It could also repair items. With the blade you can sculpt things you were usually not able to, but only if you're worthy of Sayeb's will. But he cannot use it yet. It takes a lot of mana to use it, so he needs to get stronger first. The crew members are running towards him. They all thought that he was going to die. They thought that he was weak because of his low level, but they've never seen something like that before. They think that his strength comes from his gear, and the support character immediately heals him to thank him. He tells that it wasn't all that much, and he wants to hunt again with them. He wants to level up as quickly as possible, even though his health is really low. He states that he wants to level up like a madman, but he now has to come out of the virtual reality. He has a medical examination in the hospital. As he arrives, he sees a girl that he recognizes, but he doesn't know if it's real. He gets almost run over by a car, but he jumps to the side and isn't sure why that happened, because he is imagining weird things that aren't actually there. It might be because of the virtual reality that his brain is imagining things that aren't there. He has to fill in a form at the psychologist. The psychologist is laughing really hard, so the assistant walks in. She tells the assistant to take a look at the form Lee Young filled in. The assistant is surprised because of Lee Young's answers. He states that his occupation is to become a grand villain that disrupts the peace of humanity. He also wrote about things he's doing in the continent of Royal Road, which the psychologist and the assistant obviously won't understand. The assistant thinks that this is some kind of joke, but the psychologist states that only a normal person could write things like this. She then shows the form to other patients, which isn't allowed, and the assistant is trying to stop her from doing it. As the professor walks out, she walks to a person who is also playing the virtual reality game. The name of the patient is Sayun, and she asks if the patient is in the same world Lee Yoon described, and she wonders when she will see that person smile again. Surka, one of the crew members, asks Lee Yoon if he is at the same spot again, and he is indeed still waiting for the sage. They are going to hunt tonight again, and they ask him if he wants to come. Lee Young is sculpting an object in front of the castle. He accepts their invite if he has nothing to do that night. He finally completed the sculpture that he wanted to show to the sage. He's sculpting some objects. While he is waiting in front of the castle, he had to use one of his stat points to use this skill, but he had no other choice, otherwise he would waste all his time waiting. Two girls come up to him to ask if he's selling the sculptures. He is already getting better at making them. He tells the ladies that he is selling his sculptures, and that he isn't asking much for it. He is only asking 2 silver coins for it. That is even cheaper than the girls thought it would be, so they immediately buy all of them. One of the girls is going to collect them. More people are coming to him to buy them, and he even got a higher price than he asked for. He tries to create a line to sell more of his sculptures. The knife he uses to sculpt might contain a power to attract people. The sage notices something going on outside of his castle. He didn't want to come out of his house because Lee Young was standing there. He wants the guards to drive him away, but they are also buying sculptures from him. Lee Young also notices that the sage is looking out of his window. He decides to use this moment to draw his attention, and he swings with Queen Yvain's handkerchief. It works, and he's really surprised that he's holding that, so he decided to come finally out of his house.